I love flyers. Thunderbolts, lightning. This one's very, very frightening. Me. Nice. So you're probably wondering, what's wrong with these flight stands? And honestly, I kind of really like these. I like the T at the top. It actually has a good fit to the model that actually holds most of the models they come out with pretty well. And you can even turn it around backwards for this cool like takeoff effect for the Valkyrie, which is pretty cool. So what's my problem with it? Well, the Valkyrie fits super nice in this awesome battle foam tray that I have, but the flight stand doesn't really have anywhere good to go. Like it's too wide to fit that way, it's too tall to fit this way. Like I could maybe put it upside down in one of these round holes. Nope, that's too tall too. Okay. So I know you can put them in behind the Valkyrie and they fit, but with all the sand on there, it just destroys the tail and I don't like it. So I've come up with this. They unscrew, they're nice. You can put them in these little spots here, way easier. But if you want to take some tanks, which you might want to do playing guard, maybe you want a tank or two. So you can do this, you can still hold a tank, or even better, you can push it to the side if you have a smaller tank, or it actually fits right underneath the tail in the back here really nicely. You can put a little piece of foam on that to protect your little acrylic rod. Put your acrylic rod on top of that, and then you can put some foam in between that on top of that just to give it like the full sandwich effect. But this way carries really nice and it gets you to games and you can disassemble it. It's just such a better system. So we're going to take some of these threaded inserts here and then some of these 16mm M4 little set screws or grub screws. So this is the fuselage of the Thunderbolt, which is really nice and flat, makes it easy to actually get this in here, and it's just about the same thickness as these threaded inserts, which is also pretty convenient. So these are two flute spotting drills that I have here. The left one here is a 90 degree and the right one is 120 degrees. So I'm going to use the 90 degree one to start the hole and get it to basically the depth, and then I'll finish off with the 120 degree drill just to give a flatter surface for the threaded insert actually to glue into. So you're probably thinking, well, how do I drill a hole in an acrylic rod straight? So I have this little block that my friend made me. It's a 1/2 inch and a 1/4 inch hole that was just clamped into a drill press, and one's drilled all the way through and then one's drilled half the way through. This will fit my drill in and get it pretty well centered. It's not perfect, but it's well within the tolerances that we're going to need to put a miniature airplane on top of a stick. Now that my desk is a total mess and I have a marking on my plane here, I'm going to use this block to actually align my drill so I can get a nice 90 degree angle on the hole that's going to go in for the flight stand. Now if you wanted to go in at an angle to give your plane some climb or some bank, whatever you want to do, you can also do that. But you're going to want the threaded insert to be proud of your surface so you actually have something to screw into that's not at an angle. So I'm going to get the hole most of the way drilled here, and then I'm going to pick it up and just finish that last breakthrough up in my hand so I don't slam into the table. Then I'm going to test my threaded insert. It seems to be fitting well, so I'm going to press fit it all the way in. I will glue it later. And then we have to figure out exactly where on the base this rod's going to go. You want to make sure the weight is distributed pretty evenly so the plane doesn't fall over. On these flight stands, they actually lean forward so they actually get set pretty far back on the base. Now, some of them are set different for different planes. They're kind of made differently. For these, I'm actually going to go right in the center. I've made all of mine pretty similar so that they'll actually screw into the center, so I can swap out bases if I need to. Now we just need to glue these threaded inserts into the acrylic rod. I've already drilled the holes on both sides. I just put a little bit of Gorilla Glue at the bottom here, kind of rotate it around. So when it gets pushed in, it's going to drag some glue. You really don't want to overdo this because you could fog up your acrylic rod and make it not so clear. But I have a nice flat spot on the table and pushes in, and I've done this enough times that I get it flush most of the time, but sometimes I don't. Now we're just going to do the same thing to the other side, make sure that fits and pops right in, and that gives us a flight stand. That leaves us with a much more difficult plane, the Vulture. Now, not only is the bottom of this not parallel with the ground, like at all, but it already has the T cut into it. So I've drilled a pilot hole, and now I need to go in and actually cut those corners. Otherwise, they'll actually chip and break off more than I really want here. Doing 2 at a time. I always like doing multiples if I can, just so I do the same process twice. Don't have to reload the drill, do anything else like that. But I'm actually going to do these by hand all the way through. I'm worried that if I put the drill in the drill, it'll rip those corners off, and I just don't want to deal with that, having to backfill green stuff these in. Now, the other thing, because they're not parallel, I'm going to have to leave the threaded insert very proud of the surface here so that I actually have something to screw the rod into to give me some friction. Figuring out the exact angle you're going to need for this is not easy. It's actually pretty difficult. The best way I've found is to put it onto the threaded insert, put that insert onto your acrylic rod, and kind of look at where it needs to go and try to drill it at that angle as best you can. Luckily, these are hovering planes, and if they're off at some weird angle, they still look pretty cool. Alright, so if we're going to have a flight stand, we're going to need a base. So I'm going to use the little button here to give me a good center point to put my post. But the base is actually pretty thin, and it's not going to give us enough real purchase on this threaded insert. So I'm going to take some thick plastic card here and glue it to the bottom so I get a little bit more purchase from the underside of the base. And then I'm actually going to take a cast piece of cork that I have another video on. I'll put that right here on the top side, so we have the whole bit of the threaded insert actually getting glued on. One of the keys to this is to make sure that your piece of plastic card is actually thin enough to fit under the base, because you don't want it to be rocking around. You want that full circle to be able to support the plane. Now we have the base with the holes drilled in them. We're going to need some basing material. Now these are bits of resin which work really well, but I'm also going to put a piece of plastic card on top of these just to make sure that I have good purchase and that the threaded inserts come flush to the top of the base. And I'll put my basing video right here so you can see exactly how I did all of this stuff to create this nice fancy destroyed urban rebel base. And we're going to use some Loctite here. This is the blue stuff, so it's not super hold, but it will hold this thread a little bit. And the reason I'm doing this is I want these threaded rods, these grub screws, to stay with the acrylic rod. So I don't want, when I unscrew the base, to have to unscrew the rod from both sides and it ends up in a weird, awkward position. The other reason I'm doing this is I want to make sure that the threaded rod doesn't go too far in, because it will absolutely pull out your insert. Once that's the depth that I want, I'm going to take a little bit of a Q-tip here and kind of clean up the excess so it doesn't get everywhere. And the final step to take this the extra mile is I'm taking these are actually a grommet that I've cut the center out of. Any rubber washer or O-ring will do, but I'm putting this on both sides, and what this will do, it will add tension, and I can get a better choice as to where the plane sits on the base, so the base can be in line with where the plane's flying. You can do this without, but getting your thread lined up to actually screw the plane in tight without it looking weird is much more difficult without doing this. So this gives you a little cushion area on both sides, and it also protects the paint of your base and of your plane, just to make things stay a little bit nicer for a little bit longer. In all reality, if you scratch off paint underneath the threaded rod, it doesn't matter because the threaded rod's going to be there. But like you can see, I can align this to actually be tight on both sides and hold it in the correct orientation. I hope you like this video, and I hope maybe it solves some of your Flier transport issues so you can transport more Fliers, even though you can only take 2 of them. I'm almost at 1,000 subscribers, so if you guys want to help me out to get there, that would be awesome. Go ahead and like, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll do my best to get to them. Thanks for watching.